There is a deep mercy woven into the architecture of time, a mercy that reveals itself not in the grand spectacles of life, but in the quiet arrival of things before their appointed hour. The soul that is found before October 11 has been touched by that mercy, though it may not yet understand what has happened. To be found early is to be interrupted by grace, to be caught by a whisper before the thunder comes, to be seen in a corridor of light before the shadow lengthens across the earth. There is no accident in this timing, it is the arithmetic of heaven. For all things that are truly meant are measured not by clocks or calendars, but by readiness, by the secret ripening of the heart, by the subtle harmony between divine intention and human awareness. You have not stumbled upon this moment, it has been waiting for you, poised in the air, like a note struck long ago still trembling through the unseen strings of eternity. The grace of timing is unlike any other gift, for it does not flatter the proud or decorate the wise. It arrives in stillness, in the pauses between your thoughts, as though time itself bends slightly to make room for understanding. You may imagine that you came upon this by curiosity, by chance, by the restlessness that drives you toward new words and new meanings. But no, it is timing that came upon you, not you upon it. For truth has its own will, and when it moves toward a soul, it chooses the hour with precision. Neither too soon, lest you fail to listen, nor too late, lest the door be shut. The mercy is that it found you now, before October 11, before the veil draws tighter, before the silence becomes the only teacher left to those who would not hear. If one could see time from above, as the watchmaker sees the gears of his clock, you would behold how carefully each encounter turns, how one warning must arrive before another, how every light is set along a path, so that none may wander without illumination. The divine arithmetic is slow to the impatient, but perfect to the listening heart. It is the mercy of preparation, the grace that grants warning while there is yet time to act. For truth does not seek to alarm but to awaken, to stir the sleeper not into panic, but into readiness. And readiness itself is grace, that mysterious inner bending toward what is coming, the awareness that something is drawing near. Imagine a traveler walking through a forest at twilight. The path ahead is dim, yet through the trees, faint glimmers of light appear. One here, one there, leading him forward. Those lights were not lit by accident, they were placed long before he entered the wood. And when one of them finds him before the night deepens, that is the congratulation of timing. So it is with you. This word, this moment, this message that has found you is one of those glimmers. It found you before the darkness grew complete, before the air thickened with the heaviness of unawareness. It is no small thing to be found before, for most are found after. After the door has closed, after the opportunity has withered, after the sound has faded into silence. There are few things more sorrowful than those who realize too late that they were being called all along. The grace of timing spares you that sorrow. It spares you the ache of hindsight. It is a tender interception, a hand reaching through the curtain of what is yet to come, offering the gift of now. Do not measure it lightly. Every early warning, every stirring intuition, every sudden remembrance of what matters, these are pearls cast along your path by one who desires that you not stumble. And though you may feel unworthy, though you may believe yourself too ordinary to be singled out by eternity, know this: the grace of timing often finds those least expecting it. For humility is the open door through which it enters. The world does not understand such timing. It believes only in coincidence and chance, in the mechanical ticking of days that march toward deadlines and holidays. But the deeper rhythm, the one beneath the noise, follows another pulse. It is the heartbeat of purpose, the slow and patient drawing of souls toward the light. Those who are found before the hour are those who still possess the quiet needed to hear the rhythm. They may not be holy, but they are reachable. They may not be learned, but they are listening. That is why you are congratulated. Not because you have achieved something, but because you have remained interruptible. The proud man, sealed within the fortress of his own certainty, cannot be found early, for he hears only himself. But you heard the footstep before the knock, the breath before the word, the tremor before the trumpet. That is the rarest kind of grace. And yet, to be found before is also to bear a weight. For once you know that time bends for you, you cannot pretend it does not. Once you have been warned, you cannot live as though you have not heard. This is the mercy that both comforts and disturbs. It invites you to walk differently, to think in hours that stretch beyond your own lifespan. It whispers that what you do now, before the day, before October 11, will echo through what comes after. This awareness is not given to all, it is a trust, a stewardship of time itself. You have been entrusted with knowledge that others will only glimpse when the hour is too late. Carry it with trembling gratitude, not with pride. For the one who knows before must also act before, and the one who is warned must also prepare. In every age there are those who are found early. Small beacons lit against the darkness of delay. They are not prophets in the grand sense, but watchmen who sense the shift of the wind. They do not shout, they listen. They do not predict, they discern. And because they listen, they are congratulated, not with applause, but with revelation. To be found before is to be reminded that eternity does not forget. The stars themselves keep their appointments, the tides obey their rhythm, and grace, too, arrives on time. When it finds you early, it is because it loves you enough to give you room to change. Think, then, how marvelous this timing is, that a word written long ago, or perhaps only moments ago, has crossed the invisible boundary of space and reached you before that date. Think of the millions untouched, unhearing, unawakened, and yet this one thread of thought, this one pulse of mercy, has found its way through the labyrinth of existence to your very eyes. This is not small, it is the choreography of purpose. It is the unseen coordination of all things that conspire to reach you exactly when you need it, and just before the moment when you might have turned away. There will come a day when the meaning of, before October 11, will be plain, when hindsight will show you why the message came now and not later. But even without knowing, you can sense its weight. The air feels charged, as though the unseen world leans close, whispering not threat but invitation. The congratulation is not a celebration of escape, but of awareness, that you have been granted a window of clarity, a margin in which to choose, to ready yourself, to open your heart more fully to what stirs beneath the surface of things. So hold this timing with reverence. Do not rush to understand it, for understanding is not required, only listening. Let it settle in you like rain upon dry ground. For this is the pattern of grace. It comes before. It warns before, it loves before. It moves ahead of judgment, ahead of consequence, ahead of revelation, offering you the chance to meet what is coming not as a stranger, but as one who has already been found. To be congratulated for that is no small honor, for it means the author of time has paused in his writing to circle your name upon the page, marking you as one who has heard while the ink is still wet. There is a peculiar sleep that only daylight can give. Night invites a man to rest with honesty, but daylight deceives him into thinking that he is awake. This is the blindness of comfort, the illusion that all is well, because all is familiar. It is not a blindness of the eyes but of the soul, a closing of the inward sight by the warm hands of ease. The modern heart wraps itself in soft assurances, in the steady hum of machinery, in the glow of screens and the rhythm of repetition, until the stillness of awareness is buried beneath the noise. Men call it peace, but it is paralysis. They call it stability, but it is slumber. They live in a perpetual noon, where the sun of habit blinds more than it illumines. The tragedy is not that they cannot see, but that they believe there is nothing worth seeing beyond what comfort allows. Comfort is a subtle tyrant. It does not command with threats or chains, but with cushions and conveniences. It whispers, "Stay here. You are safe." It sings lullabies of progress, of prosperity, of ordinary life unbroken by the discomfort of truth. Under its melody, the conscience drifts into a dream where nothing demands sacrifice, and everything is deserved. The mind ceases to stretch, the heart ceases to ache, and the spirit ceases to seek. Thus the blindness deepens. It is a blindness born not of darkness but of too much light. A light that dazzles rather than reveals. The soul grows used to its own imprisonment and begins to call the cage a home. There was once a time when humanity trembled at the unseen, when mystery provoked awe rather than apathy. But now men have built walls of knowledge around themselves, stacking facts like bricks, so high that they no longer look beyond them. They think themselves awake because their eyes are open, yet they see only what lies beneath their own ceiling. The heavens are invisible not because they have disappeared, but because no one looks up anymore. The blindness of comfort teaches the eyes to look downward, toward devices, toward wealth, toward the measurable and the immediate. The unseen, the eternal, the uncomfortable truth that asks for repentance or reverence. These are exiled from thought. And so men sleep standing, smiling, succeeding, while the shadows gather quietly at the edge of their sunlight. For shadows do not rush, they creep. They wait at the borders of comfort, feeding on neglect. A man does not notice when twilight begins, for it steals its way through the golden haze of afternoon, dimming the light so gently that only those awake to nuance can perceive the change. So it is with the soul. Decay rarely announces itself. The first sign of it is indifference. That quiet disengagement that feels like peace but is truly the cooling of love. Comfort makes that cooling pleasant. It tells you that nothing urgent must be done, that tomorrow will always arrive, that warnings belong to the foolish and the fearful. It numbs you against the holy unease that could have saved you. It turns vigilance into irritation, conviction into inconvenience. And by the time the shadow is thick enough to notice, the eyes have forgotten how to see. It is a strange mercy, then, when discomfort enters a man's life. Pain, loss, failure, these are not enemies but awakeners. The shaking of ease is often the first movement of grace. But the blind do not welcome it. They flee it as though it were destruction itself. They call the darkness evil, not realizing it is the only thing that can reveal the stars. The blindness of comfort has taught them to fear what disturbs and to worship what soothes. They forget that peace without purpose is merely sedation, and that joy without truth is only distraction dressed in gold. The most dangerous prison is the one that feels like paradise. You can see this blindness in the way men treat time. They spend it as though it were endless, as though the days were coins from an inexhaustible purse. Each sunrise is consumed without wonder, each hour spent as though it owed them its existence. Comfort tells them they have time enough, and so they waste it on trivial pursuits, endless entertainments, hollow ambitions, the pursuit of approval that fades before it is felt. Their hearts grow heavy with things, yet light with meaning. And all the while, the edge grows darker. The horizon tightens. Something vast approaches, but the sleepers do not turn their heads. Why would they? The day is bright, and the couch is soft. There is also a blindness of gratitude. Comfort, when left unchecked, breeds entitlement. The man who once prayed in hunger now complains in abundance. He no longer thanks for daily bread, for he has a pantry full of it. He no longer looks for providence, for he has policies and plans. He forgets the giver and worships the gift. His prayers shrink to wishes for continued convenience. The sacred becomes ordinary, and the ordinary becomes invisible. The sun rises and he yawns. The rain falls and he curses the traffic. He cannot see the miracle, because comfort has dulled his sense of wonder. The blindness of comfort is not the absence of light, but the refusal to notice it. And yet, in every age, there are those who awaken. Their comfort crumbles, sometimes by choice, sometimes by necessity, and they discover that the shadows were not punishment but prophecy. They learn that blindness is not cured by adding more light, but by opening the eyes of the heart. When a man finally dares to sit in silence, to step outside the noise, he begins to hear again the soft hum of eternity, beneath the clatter of his own world. He feels the weight of the unseen pressing gently upon him, and he knows, perhaps for the first time, that comfort was the thief that kept him poor. The blindness of comfort is clever enough to disguise itself as goodness. It says, Surely life was meant to be pleasant. Surely you deserve to feel safe. It decorates the prison walls with flowers and calls them blessings. But there is no true safety in forgetting the truth, no true peace in avoiding the pain of seeing clearly. Real sight is costly. It burns away illusion, and with it, the fragile happiness of ignorance. But once a man has seen, he cannot unsee. He walks differently. He becomes restless in the company of those still sleeping, not with pride but with sorrow. He longs for them to wake, for he remembers what it was like to dream in daylight and call it living. The shadows that gather at the edge are not sent in malice. They are the rightful consequence of neglect. Light, when taken for granted, recedes. Truth, when ignored, withdraws into silence. And the world, left to its comforts, drifts toward coldness. Every age that forgets its dependence on something higher grows blind by degrees, until it can no longer distinguish good from easy, or right from pleasant. The blindness of comfort becomes the blindness of nations. And still, even then, the invitation remains to wake, to see, to remember that the light was never the problem. Only the eyes that refuse to open. There is a quiet hope even in this blindness. For the soul that has slept long in comfort can be awakened by the simplest thing, a word, a loss, a whisper of unease that will not go away. One need not tear down the sun to see the shadows. One need only stop pretending that they are not there. The one who admits his blindness has already begun to see. And perhaps that is the mercy within the warning. That even now, before the full dark has come, there are eyes being opened, hearts stirring, souls beginning to rise from their comfortable graves, blinking against the light they had forgotten was still shining all along. There comes a moment, quiet as dawn yet weightier than thunder, when the soul feels a stirring that cannot be traced to any earthly cause. It is not born of emotion, nor is it the echo of some human voice. It is something deeper, the breath of eternity passing near enough to move the dust of our complacency. It does not shout, it does not demand. It whispers, and yet that whisper carries a gravity that no empire can silence. It says simply, awake. For the time has drawn near when sleep will no longer protect but destroy. The call to awaken is the oldest summons known to man, older than language, older than memory itself. It was spoken before the first morning, and will be heard after the last night. A call not to the ears but to the eternal core within each of us. That place where we are more than flesh, more than mind, where the echo of the Creator still vibrates, waiting to be answered. The tragedy of humanity is not that it cannot hear, but that it will not. The call comes through every age, in the tremor of conscience, in the ache of beauty, in the ruin of pride. But men prefer the comfort of their slumber. To awaken means to see, and to see means to change. It is easier to remain drowsy in the safety of ignorance, to mistake dreams for life and shadows for truth. Yet the mercy of the voice is relentless. It will speak through a friend's warning, through a loss that breaks the shell of habit, through the restlessness that will not be soothed. The voice of eternity does not argue, it invites. It speaks to the heart in its own language of recognition, as though saying, I have always known you. Now know me. To awaken is not merely to open one's eyes, but to open one's will. The sleeper who stirs yet clings to the warmth of his bed is not yet awake. The soul must rise, must stand, must prepare itself for the weight of reality. Readiness is the discipline of the awakened. It is to live with one ear tilted toward heaven, listening beneath the noise for the sound that orders all things. The one who stands ready is not restless but rooted, not frantic but alert. He walks through the world as through a threshold, aware that at any moment, the veil may tremble and the eternal might break through the ordinary. This is not superstition but sanity, for the universe is not a machine but a mystery, and it hums with meaning even when we pretend otherwise. The call to awaken is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives like lightning, splitting the clouds of denial, burning away the false comfort of ease. The soul cries out unprepared, confused, afraid. But even this pain is mercy, for it is better to be burned awake than to sleep into ruin. The voice of eternity is patient, but it is not sentimental. It will not let you sleep forever. It will disturb your peace, so that you may find real peace. It will strip your illusions, so that you may be clothed in truth. It will shake your confidence in the temporary, so that you may trust in the everlasting. And when it whispers, it is not because it is weak, but because it is near. The whisper is for those who are close enough to hear without shouting. There are souls who live half awake, dimly aware that something vast presses against the borders of their world. They sense it in quiet moments, in the spaces between distractions. A sudden stillness falls, and for a breath, the veil thins. The heart trembles, not with fear but with recognition. They know, though they cannot say how, that they are being addressed. The temptation is always to flee back into noise, to drown the whisper in business or pleasure. For awakening requires courage, and courage is born only in surrender. The call asks for more than attention. It asks for allegiance. It demands that we reorient our entire being toward the one who calls. To stand in readiness means to live as if the unseen is more real than the seen, as if eternity is not a theory, but a horizon fast approaching. There is a holiness in readiness. It transforms the ordinary act of waiting into worship. The awakened soul sees the divine signatures everywhere. In the turning of the seasons, in the kindness of a stranger, in the ache that reminds him he was made for more. Each moment becomes a message, each delay a discipline. The world around him still sleeps, dreaming of its own greatness, but he watches the sky for the faintest glimmer of dawn. He knows the voice that once whispered will speak again, and when it does, he intends to be found standing. To live in such readiness is not to live in fear, but in reverence. It is to understand that time is not a cycle but a story, and that every story has an ending that is also a beginning. The veil of time is thin, thinner than men believe. It shimmers between what is and what shall be, between the mortal and the eternal, like a curtain of breath between two worlds. Every now and then, it stirs. A moment of delayed view, a dream that feels like memory, an encounter that seems too precise to be chance. These are the tremors of the eternal pressing against the temporal, reminders that there is more at play than matter and motion. When the voice of eternity speaks through that veil, it does not announce itself with spectacle, but with simplicity. It may come as a question, "Are you awake yet?" It may come as a conviction that will not leave, as a light in the mind that refuses to fade. Those who are sensitive to that voice find themselves changed, not outwardly at first, but inwardly reordered. Their priorities shift, their appetites refine, their eyes sharpen. They begin to see the world not as a playground, but as a pilgrimage. To awaken is to be reborn into responsibility. The awakened cannot return to the indifference of the dreamers. They see what others ignore. The suffering that is not accidental, the beauty that is not decorative, the time that is not infinite. They feel the ache of meaning in every moment, and that ache both burdens and blesses them. They are not better than others, but they are burdened with more sight, and sight is costly. They must walk through a world content with sleep, carrying a fire that few understand. They are mocked for their urgency, pitied for their seriousness, dismissed as alarmists. Yet they know what the sleepers do not, that the voice of eternity is not a metaphor but a presence, and that to hear it is to be called into alignment with reality itself. The call to awaken is not only personal but universal. Whole generations are summoned, whole nations are stirred. History itself is a series of awakenings. Brief moments when humanity lifts its eyes from the dust and glimpses the divine horizon. But just as quickly, the eyes droop again, lulled by comfort, wearied by the weight of self-interest. Yet even so, the voice persists. It will speak again before October 11, and after, and again in every season until the final unveiling. Its whisper carries the same invitation it did in the beginning: stand ready. The hour is nearer than you think. Those words are not a threat, but a promise. They mean that history has meaning, that time is not a prison, but a passage. Readiness is not about prediction, but posture. It is the stance of a heart awake to purpose, a spirit uncluttered by distraction. The awakened soul does not know the hour, but he knows the one who keeps it. He does not fear the veil, for he knows it will one day lift. Until then, he lives with his lamp trimmed, his eyes open, his hands unclenched. Every dawn becomes rehearsal for that final awakening, when time will be swallowed by eternity and every whisper will become a voice clear as light.